And it's a good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Mr. B, your host, and welcome to the show. And tonight we have Mr. Jim Goodall, and we got, oh, come on, do I really have to say? We got the Midwest Night Watchers, Daryl and his buddy wife, Jane. How you going? Nice to see you
Hi.
guys. Anyway, we're
Hi,
still
Jim.
waiting.
Hi there.
Oh, yes. Hey, Jim, Daryl, Jim, Jen.
Well, I've talked with
I
Gerald
got
before. Yeah. So
Yep.
Yeah,
He-
Jim's been on our show.
Oh,
Yeah.
is he? Oh, terrific. Well, mate, well, your friends.
it-
I'm just waiting for our co-host to come on. I mean, he's like, hey, Jim, give him a bit of a hoy, will you?
you want me to call him?
Yeah, give him a
Yeah.
call. He should be here by now. He's
You'll
slack.
probably have to replace him with one of us.
No, he had a late. He had a late night last night. He was actually playing his music on his channel. He's got a lot of beautiful music he owns, and yes, and I know he was talking about he wanted to have a look at the eclipse apparently. So maybe he's, I don't know, just sleeping in. I don't know. I know it's early night. Maybe I don't know. It's evening your time.
Biden? Yeah, we're on the air. Where in the hell you at? Okay. Just a second.
I love it.
That was great.
Hey, only Jim Goodall can do that. Where the bloody hell?
He's coming. He's next.
Oh, yeah, that's excellent. Well, the thing is, I mean, what's been happening lately in the media? I mean, I hate hearing stuff coming out of the Middle East, and it's there's the dog complaining now. He wants to join in on the show, and apparently, I was actually talking to Jim earlier on. You can't really believe what the media tells you, and you've got to be very careful because a bit of propaganda inspires people to let's go to war, and I think what we need to do is prepare ourselves, sit back and see what unfolds before we start rushing in like a knight in shining armor, because it doesn't always work out how you think it's going to work out, unfortunately. But and what's going on that's being posted where they're showing photos on Facebook and that of an old person's arm with a tattoo on them from the Holocaust, and then they show another arm of a baby with 2013, 2023. Sorry, let's get that right. But the thing is, I'm getting at is how can you compare the Holocaust to what's happening? Look,
what Hamas did to innocent women, children, and babies to go in and slaughter them the way they did. There were guys who've been dealing with all sorts of nasty groups, and this just really takes the cake. And for the world to tell Israel, well, maybe you should negotiate hell. They committed atrocities that are almost, I mean, they're too terrible to even try to imagine. I can't imagine the PTSD of the soldiers and the rescue people who went into some of these kibbutz and found babies with their heads cut off. I mean, that is beyond barbaric. And Netanyahu and a number of his key generals said, when we're done with this, Hamas will no longer be on this planet, is basically what they're said. And I don't see how anybody could fault Israel. And they've been.
I agree with you there. I agree with you, but I think we've got to let Israel do what they've got to do to unfold what's going to happen, and the world. It shouldn't just be America. The United Nations should be right behind all this, because the last time a situation like this happens when the Japanese invaded China, and where they were actually bayoneting babies and stuff like that during the Second World War, before the outbreak of the Second World War. And it's like, I mean, it is disgusting. It really is. Anyway, oh God, look who's turning up now. Oh,
Oh,
God.
jeez.
Oh, here he is. What time you bloody called it, mate?
Look what
You're late.
it in. Yeah. Yeah. How's it going, Robert? How's everything? You can't hear you. I know your technical expertise is not very high. So
Oh, good. Hey, you'll be able to talk. Hey, Jim, you can talk now. You'll be able to talk now, Jim.
oh yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Okay,
we're done. We're done for. We're done for. Oh my God, we're done for.
And you're out of focus.
I'm out of focus.
Yeah, and your voice is delayed.
You didn't leave your weed on your camera, did you?
Did
He's
I? I
time
think
traveling.
that might be what it is. Hold on.
I was enjoying your show yesterday, mate, with that music. Beautiful. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, thank you very much for signing in and checking it out. I decided that, with all of the music that I've produced over the years, and it's mostly on my Intuitive Sounds site. And
Yes, yeah, we've got to plug that. Come on, give everybody your email address. Come on. Not
yeah,
your
well,
email,
the
your
website's intuitivesound .com. So it's intuitive, INTUITIVE sound, and it's all one word, .com. And so I thought, well, I'm not sure how much I have, because I haven't really, done a whole look at everything that I have out there. Am I any clearer now?
No, not really. But
No.
you've got a lag going on. I can hear your voice, but your lips are not moving with it.
I know.
Yeah, now you're frozen.
Yep, now he's froze.
Oh, dear.
Should be come. Is that any better?
Much
Yes.
better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually,
It's
I
that
liked
damn-
it better when it was fuzzy, but that's okay.
Well, that's kind of the feeling and the mood of the day.
Well, we're actually talking at the moment, Robert, about what's happening in the Middle East.
Yeah.
Right, with Israel and every goes. And actually, I like Jim to be talking about, because Jim's been on quite a few of these aircraft carriers, apparently. And apparently, was it the Gerald Ford pulling into Israel? They had AC/DC music playing to it, which was really good. I tried to copy it to show it on the show, but these news medias are getting very smart now. They have a special link now that blocks you. You've got to go and get the permission. Bet you if you do go and get permission, they're going to want a few dollars. So anyway,
Well, that's
such as life.
So I guess I missed the first part of where you guys were talking about the generalness of it.
Yeah,
And
but the beheading stuff, and basically, but
yeah, I think that the details of the stuff that we're hearing are, in my opinion, is a lot of the theatrics, right? I think that what we're seeing is multiple.
Propaganda.
We've been seeing this for a while. There's multiple movies on one screen, and I think that the bigger geopolitical and psychological perspective is the thing that I find the most interesting. When you look at, we talked about this last Monday night, I believe. When you look at just the metrics of the environment and what's going on, you got a 4 to 6 mile wide by 25 mile strip of land that around 2 million people are in. And apparently of that 2 million, there's roughly half of them are 17 years of age and younger. So the first thing I thought about was that's a very small piece of land, and you've got 2 million people, with half of them are essentially teenagers or younger. That seems kind of odd to me, just listening to it and thinking about it. And then start looking at some of the other metrics as far as the amount of time. If you have an average age of half of your population of 17 years and younger, what was happening 17 years ago? 17 years ago was when Hamas took over from the PLO.
Yeah.
So apparently these people they don't have any economy. They don't produce anything. They basically live on donations and support from various countries and individuals and groups and so forth. But apparently these folks have been getting jiggy with it. And that's why there's this apparently this odd metric in the population. But then you throw in some of the other things like the Mossad is one of the world's best known and respected intelligence and get shit done groups. They are respected around the world for their technical skills, their intelligence skills, their special ops skills, etc. So, what was it that happened where there was the ability to breach this long-held security line that these guys have had in place and are well known for? So, it seems to me, and we've heard these, and here's the first thing I should have said up front: anything you hear in the news, you can't believe. Okay,
Right.
including the
talking about
beheading, including the beheading of the kids. From what I've seen, that came from a reporter who said she heard it from soldiers, but there hasn't been any confirmation that I've heard or seen that they've actually found these beheaded kids. Doesn't mean it didn't happen. But the bottom line is, in the fog of war, the information that comes out is always you've got to be very skeptical about it. And I have basically, I try to employ a 24 to 48 hour rule on any information that comes out and just see where it sits, where it ends up.
That's why we say just sit back and see what unfolds. Anyway, let me ask Gerald. Gerald, what's your opinion on this, mate? How do you see this?
Well, Israel has always been under attack just because, whether it's biblical or whatever, that they were the chosen ones, supposedly, the Jews. But I don't understand how somebody like the Palestinians who are living on land that was given to them, or this, the Straits, they can populate that area now along with Israel's populating it also. But how do you complain when you're launching missiles into the people that are letting you live in the Straits, and then when they answer back and start defending themselves, then you complain about it and try to get everybody on your side saying, boo-hoo, they're attacking us. Well, you attacked them and killed innocent people on that side.
Yeah. And they can look at the Lebanon people in Lebanon. They complain now that the Israelis now got their gunships and they're firing into their country. But hey, come on. They didn't stop the terrorists from bloody sending rockets. I mean, surely they got their own security that they could stop all that. Just clamp down, no more. No, they're going to get it back. Why are they complaining? They're getting shot at.
Well, this goes to another one of the metrics that is very confusing that people don't have a lot of accurate information on, and that is this whole idea of territory, and both territory and this term of Palestinians. My understanding of the information I've seen is first of all, there is no Palestinian culture. There is no Palestinian people, not like the Hebrews, which people keep using the term Jews, but Jews was a term that was ascribed to them back in the Middle Ages. They're actually Hebrews. They're Semitic Hebrews, okay? So that their history in that region goes back millennia, back 2,000-3,000 BC at least. But the Palestinian term was put in place by the Sykes-Picot Agreement back in 1902 or 3, when England and France ran the area, and they decided to call that region Palestine. Palestinian people don't really exist. In fact,
well, they're Philistines, aren't they?
Well,
they're
Arabs.
Name? Yeah,
they're basically, from what this is the stuff that I've seen. They are Arab gypsies. They live a nomadic gypsy lifestyle, and that is one of the reasons, because of the characteristics that lifestyle has. That's one of the reasons they've been kicked out of every other Arab country. They've been kicked out of Egypt, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria. Nobody wants these folks because they don't get along with others, and they are Arabs There's no such thing as a Palestinian. There's no culture. They are so it was a region that was carved out back in the like I said in 1902, 1903 by the guy that was representing England and the guy that was representing France, and that was this Chi-Rho. You can look it up and read all about it. And what they did is they created this region. So the whole narrative of these poor people called Palestinians is wrong. There are no Palestinians. B, when you look at the characteristics of who these people are, nobody wants them. They keep getting pushed out of wherever they went. It's very similar to the Hebrews that they've gone through, but for a much longer period of time. And the problem is that they've allowed these radical ideologues to, in the form of Hamas, to run their little slice of land. And if you look at the charter for Hamas, that specifically spells out that one of their goals is the elimination of the state of Israel and the Israeli people. All right, well, Golda Meir said back in it was like 60s, said you can't negotiate peace with someone who wants to kill you. So, I mean, that's what we're seeing right now. So you have a lot of these bleeding hearts that are low information, they're highly educated, but very stupid. They haven't done the work to understand what is the actual event, what are the characteristics and the metrics of the event. And they're using the typical victimhood mentality they're being virtue signaling victims that they are claiming as victims when the people are actually the victims of themselves. So yeah, the stuff that's been going on, I think that Israel, the Mossad, the intelligence, they knew it was coming. I think they allowed it to come. And I think that they allowed it because if they had the intelligence ahead of time and they decided to act on it and they went in and just took out whoever they were that were going to do the attacks, they would have been seen as the aggressor. But by allowing those that were in Hamas that were planning this to go ahead and execute and then retaliate, they are no longer the aggressors. They are the responders. They are the actual victims. So I think strategically that's what they did. If they did know, and I can't imagine that they didn't know it was coming, because again, the Mossad is one of the world class of intelligence and special ops.
And what's your take on this, Jen?
Well, to get the idea what Mossad can do, and I'm going to go back 30 years from now. And I was activated for Desert Shield and Desert Storm. And I was being prepared to go to Saudi Arabia for a year. I had a fatal attraction girlfriend I was trying to get away from. So I volunteered to go there for a year. And we were getting a briefing at Dow Air Force Base there in Delaware. And the Air Force intelligence guy said, we believe Saddam is somewhere in this building. At least he was earlier today. Blah, 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 blah. And then he finished his presentation. And then a member of Mossad came up and he looked at his watch and he says, 43 minutes ago, Saddam was in this office. He has a picture of the building in this corner of this building. I mean, he's in the office, but his back is towards the northeast or southeast corner, whatever it was. And that was 43 minutes. I mean, for the Mossad not to know exactly what they were going to do is absurd. It's my feeling, and I think there's a lot of people that start to feel the same way. The only way that Israel could wipe out Hamas, I mean, literally wipe them off the face of the earth, is an all-out air, ground, and sea invasion of Gaza. And the only way we'd be acceptable to the world is retaliation after such a horrific murdering of women, children, and babies, and the innocents.
Well, what they're actually saying now that the weapons they have actually retrieved is provided by Russia and China. And now China is saying to America, stay away from Taiwan Sea, right? And now they know that the fleets are heading off to the Middle East. Now they're now putting pressure on Taiwan.
That's
Yeah.
the Atlantic Fleet, not the
Yeah.
Pacific Fleet.
Okay, fair enough.
And you have to remember, we probably have one of the two East Coast SSGNs. That's the Arsenal boats. When they converted the four oldest Ohio boats, they converted them took out the ballistic missiles, and they put in up to 154 Tomahawk cruise missiles. Now they had when the Fat Nork in North Korea was rattling his swords, they moved the USS Michigan from home base at Bangor and Hood Canal to Guam. And they were there for 800 plus days. And they would surface off the coast of North Korea on a regular basis just to let them know that, oh, we're in the neighborhood and there's not a damn thing you can do about it. They don't have anti-submarine warfare capabilities. The Chinese don't either.
Actually, well, it's just in the Australian news, actually, yesterday, apparently Donald Trump's getting in trouble. You probably heard that he's told the Australian Prime Minister about all the nukes they've got around China, only a couple of kilometers off the coastline. and of course, Donald Trump's now getting wrapped across the knuckles for letting out U.S. secrets to their allies.
He doesn't do anything by mistake. Everything is planned. Absolutely everything.
Anyway, Jan, what's your take on all this? You're sitting there nice and quiet, so come on. We'll get a feminine view on all this. So,
All right. Well, I don't want to step on toes.
No, just sakes. We're truth seekers here. No, we don't.
I have my steel-toed shoes on.
All right.
Hey, we speak what we think. Doesn't make us right, but hey, I think we've all got slight different opinions, but we've got to respect each other's opinion. And
right.
That's what it's all about. It's like digging into the truth, because the media's not going to tell us the truth.
No.
Exactly.
So we've got to work it out for ourselves, So what's your take, though?
Well, I look at it, I am a Christian, but I also believe in the paranormal, the supernatural, cryptid UFOs, everything. So a conspiracy theory. So I put everything all together. But I've been studying Bible prophecy since about 1985. So you're looking at close to 40 years. So I have been watching the signs all these years, and I look at them as birth pains, like the Bible says, that all this stuff is supposed to happen. It's meant to happen. It's supposed to increase and get more and more and even worse, little by little, just like a woman having birth. So I was not surprised. And I know other Bible scholars that I follow on YouTube, they're not surprised. We've been waiting for this certain event to happen.
Doesn't
it doesn't really surprise me, in other words. Yeah. Because I mean, the way things are going, we're just leading up to, more of the end times.
Yeah,
it's meant to happen.
The scriptures also says too that we'll have what they call 7 years of bliss and peace.
Yeah.
And during the Antichrist, apparently, and then we got the second coming of Christ, so they say.
Right.
I mean,
so this could be the war leading up to that 7 years of peace to get everybody to calm down. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, could be. I mean, I don't know. I mean, well, I believe in God, but I'm not I believe more Judaism faith than modern day Christianity, Judaism Christian. Too much man-made stuff like, and it just gets to your head anyway. So I'll just stick to the older generation.
I have no fear on anything. Whatever happens is meant to happen. There's nothing we can do about it. Just ride out the ride and see where we go.
That's right. And we'll get Robert, you're back, mate. How are you?
Good.
Very, very, very patiently sitting on the side, giving the old chin a tickle. Anyway, what's your take, buddy?
Well, having been a former, I had a Christian music ministry back in the 80s, and I was heavily into prophecy. And I ran Bible studies at least 2-3 times, sometimes 5 days a week, digging into Isaiah and Ezekiel and Daniel and Revelation. And in fact, before I started the ministry, I was soaking up. I don't know if you guys remember back in the 70s, particularly the second half of the 70s, there was all these preachers and prophecy shows on the UHF channels.
Mhm.
And some of these guys were dishing out some serious whoop ass on, what was going on with, how Jeremiah prophesied this, and then, getting into the whole revelation of, the 144,000 and the rapture and all this stuff. So I was soaking that stuff up. And then I got into the church and started the ministry. It was a Pentecostal ministry. So I've
which was founded in 1901, apparently. I didn't know the name of the gentleman, but anyway, carry on.
Yeah, there was the whole Pentecostal that actually goes back to the 1800s. There was, a lot of the revivals that were going on, and it was
the street.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of, and during that same time, there was a lot of the mystery schools and the secret societies were making a significant push into society. And one of the reactions, it seems as though, is that during the 1800s, there was a lot of scientific and technical stuff that was coming about, and there was significant changes in the way that people were looking at science as having some kind of dominance over the theologies and the belief systems, because we were getting railroads, we were getting telegraph, we were getting all these things that had nothing to do or was not mentioned in any biblical sense. And it was like, where's all these things coming from? So as the mystery schools were rising, Blavatsky and Annie Besant and all Steiner, Gurdjieff, all these guys were starting to talk about a different way of looking at reality and the spirit world and what we would call the paranormal. So there was a lot of conflict going on, because the mystery schools were competing with the science, who was competing with the religions, and there was a lot of stuff happening. And so religions had to kind of fight back and get a little more gutsy and do the Pentecostal thing, the speaking in tongues, laying on of hands and healing the sick and casting out devils and all this kind of stuff, which has actually been going on for millennia. But my point is that the belief systems and the prophecies, it's interesting how it's like Nostradamus. You can take Nostradamus's prophecies and listen to John Hogue, for example, who does a great job with it. And you can see where maybe he did see some things that you could correlate within these quatrains that are very obtuse in the use of language, but you kind of decipher it and interrogate it, and you say, well, this probably meant that, like the Hister versus Hitler quatrains. But even in prophecy, there's very little in prophecy in the Bible that I've seen that has ever happened. There's very little historical. The real historical stuff seems to have happened that seems to have some kind of correlation is in the Old Testament. But in the New Testament, really the only prophecies, except for Jesus, when the apostles were asking Christ about when he would return, and there'd be this 3 days of disappearing and coming back and all this. And apparently that, at least according to some accounts, happened. But in Revelation, there's nothing that has happened in Revelation, or that it was said in Revelation, that has happened now. You can easily draw correlations to, well, this sounds like we're getting into the tribulation period, or, what is that 144,000? A lot of the more fundamental Christians look at that and say, well, that's the rapture. Well, the word rapture is never even used. There is no even translatable word that resembles that. So I became, as I was studying all this, I kept trying to find stuff that resonated and made sense to me. And the more I asked when I was in the Christian church, the less answers I had, and the answers I was given were faith. You just got to believe. You just got to have faith. And I'm like, I'm sorry, that faith thing is, I have faith in myself, but faith in some of these stories and some of these things are really difficult to swallow. So that's when I found, as I was going through my journey of discovering myself, I was looking for a system that said, that resonated with my experience. And that's when I found Taoism. And I've been a Taoist since going on 30 years, since the mid 90s.
It's called we're being conditioned, mate.
It's all of it. All of it's conditioning, philosophy, theology, science. It's all
starts right at school, mate. Right at school, it starts. Bang. The kid sitting next to you in class is not learning any more than what you are. Unless their parents are doing extracurricular at home for them, say, no, don't read that crap. Read this. Or they're encouraged to go down their own path at home. You know what I mean? To read up.
Well, that's why, for me, as I started off initially, the information that's coming in, you have to take and be very skeptical of all of it. You have to realize that the majority of what you're being told is somebody else's cooked up, carefully crafted and curated content and their narrative. And we've got more of that going on across the board. You can pick whatever knowledge domain, discipline, institution you want. They're all polluted with parasites.
And as I said, as I said in the last show, homeschool kids have a higher IQ. It's a scientific fact. They've actually done a study on it.
Yeah, it depends on, that's on average, and not all. The homeschooling doesn't have the tools that it's about to have. The ability, and I'm going to try to stay off this rant, but the technological evolution that we're about to see, and what we're seeing with this thing called AI, which is not artificial and it's not intelligence. All it is a hyper search engine across a database or databases. Okay. It's nothing more than Alexa and Siri and Google and Bing on steroids. There is no intelligence in there. It's actually more of, it's kind of like, how we have augmented reality?
Yeah. I call analog. Doesn't have a soul, mate.
Well, it can't, because it's not organic.
Yeah, exactly.
The only thing that, from my understanding, is the only thing that can have any kind of intellect or sentience, self-awareness, is an organic entity, something that we would put the term life around.
Yeah. Right, let's change the subject for a second.
But wait a minute. Let me just finish this.
Okay. Finish.
So to the homeschooling and education, what I think we're about to see is the unleashing of knowledge and information that's going to come through technology, some of it like what we're using here. But this AI is going to become augmented intelligence or augmented intellect, which is really what it is. And people are going to be able to use it to go find information to learn from. There will be a rise of what I've called myself for many years. I'm an autodidact, right? Didact is somebody who learns, and auto is you do it yourself.
We're doing it from Google. We're doing it from Google now, aren't we? I mean, we want to know something, we ask Google.
Well, I don't, but yeah, I mean that's a standard thing, right? And for marketing, I mean, what greater marketing is there than if you come up with the name of a product that becomes the activity? It's like Kleenex. Kleenex is a facial tissue, but Kleenex became, the term that people, I need a Kleenex. The same thing happened with Xerox back in the 70s and 80s. Well, you need a Xerox copy. Well, that's a facsimile or a copy, a scan. It's not a Xerox. Xerox is the company.
Unless you copied it on a Xerox machine. I had worked for Xerox for 11 years, and that was,
nice segue.
That was a big thing. You did not Xerox something. You photocopied it unless it came out of a Xerox machine. Then you can honestly say,
but Canon also had a machine too, didn't they?
Yeah.
And so did Epson had a machine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just a catchy name.
But we used to have battles. We couldn't even, because at the time, now I went to work for Xerox in 67. Yes, early 67. I worked in Hollywood. Boy, that was a trip. I had a year I had the studios, and then for a year I had everything on Sunset Strip from La Brea till Delhaney. So I covered the whole gamut of Hollywood, and it was. And before that, I worked for the phone company in the Compton Watts area as a night repairman. That was really exciting back in the '60s. And then when I was my first day out of training, I was with a Tech 4. His name, everybody called him High. His name was really long, and he was really mad at his parents. Says, I was born here, even though they weren't. Why couldn't they call me Joe or something like that? But we stopped at a drugstore, and he went in and he got some sun lotion. He got something for sunburn and a thing to go around your neck. I said, what's that for? I said, for you. I said, what do you mean your head's going back and forth like this? Because this the braless look and the mini skirt just came into being. And I'm working on Sunset Strip. This is back in 67, 68 time frame when it was decadent. It wasn't scum like it is today. And that was an interesting part. But the part with Xerox, yeah, it's you're going to Xerox something. No, you're going to photocopy something. And you'd have to correct people if it was in a business environment and you were Xerox, whether you're a salesman or a tech.
It's funny, you just brought back a flash of memory in my head. 77 Sunset Strip. Do you remember that show?
Oh yeah. I've been in that building. It wasn't 77, but but it was working in Sunset Strip in the 1966, 67, 68 time frame. That was literally a real trip. I mean, I had the Playboy Club, I had the Whiskey a Go-Go, I had Dick Clark Productions. In Hollywood, I had the Beach Boys production and a lot of the talent agencies. And apparently I looked just like George Hamilton's brother. That's who they started calling me that as I walked in this one agency. Well, that's not who I am. I'm Jim Goodall. I'm your friendly Xerox tech rep. And
it was a lot of what they called, there was back in when Led Zeppelin came out in 70, 71, and a lot of the music critics were just, trashing it, going on. And one of the terms they used was, this is just pure debauchery. Yeah. It's like, I was listening, when I heard that, I said, I don't know what debauchery is, but I got to get me some of that.
Yeah. Is that like Lazar 115?
Yes.
Anyway, Jim, hey, I'd like to hear about your adventures going on these aircraft carriers, mate.
Doing what?
Your visits to the aircraft carriers.
Oh, I had requested to be on a COD aircraft or a multi-seat fighter or attack aircraft and go out and spend a couple of days on a Nimitz class carrier. And I was sort of turned down until my first big hardbound submarine book came out on the Los Angeles class. And I get a call from the Navy. And they said, we would like to invite you out to the Abraham Lincoln during carrier quals, starting, I think it was April, I think it was. And I said, sure. So it turns out that I landed on an aircraft carrier on a COD aircraft. Yeah, and you sit backwards, which is weird. But I was by the only window, so I could see out just a little bit. And I was there for 2 full days, and there's 6,500 people on board that carrier. They have about 85 aircraft, of which 2/3 of them are fighter attack aircraft. They have a couple 100 tons of live ammo if they're going into a war zone. And they're absolutely incredible machines. I mean, they weigh 110,000 tons. The Nimitz class are 1,093 foot from bow to stern, and they're 400 feet wide, and they're floating cities. and that operation there, not only can they prevent anybody else from coming into the area to assist Hamas or Hezbollah, but in case of we're going to go in and we're going to rescue people, they have the resources, they have the helicopters, they have everything they need to be successful. They may even have a Navy SEAL team on board that can go out, and I'm sure there's in Soda, Greece, there's always a Virginia class fast attack submarine in the area, and same in Naples. And we always have a couple of our fast attacks in the area, as well as either one of the SSGNs, the Ohio boats that have conventional weapons. But in the North Atlantic, there's always an Ohio boat on patrol. They have
And by the way, Jim, with these aircraft carriers, I mean, especially the General Ford aircraft carrier and the the Eisenhower aircraft carrier.
The Eisenhower hasn't quite left yet. They were
don't they go in a flotilla? Like how many ships would be actually escorting them?
There's usually 8 to 10 ships, destroyers, cruisers. But what they also have, they have at least one, usually 2 submarines associated with it. So no one's going to be able to sneak up behind them or underneath them and blow them out of the water. We have, and
this is what a lot of people don't realize. They hear about the aircraft carrier, but they don't know the force behind that aircraft carrier, what's escorting it, And
I mean, they have the Aegis class destroyers, the Arleigh Burkes. They have anti-satellite capability. They have ABM, anti-ballistic missile capability. They have the Spy 1 search radar on the Aegis class destroyers, which is very much like the big pave paws they had up at Shimmy and at Beale Air Force Base, and I think in Thule. So we go in the area. None of our ships go in the area alone unless they're a submarine.
Yeah. And plus a new tech they've got, they've got this new laser weapons now. Actually, they've even got these missiles now. They don't. It's just pushed out by pressure. It doesn't even have jets or anything on it. It's just like an iron rod with a high explosive tip on them. It's strange.
Yeah. And the nice thing about our submarines versus everybody else's. A Seawolf or Virginia class submarine at 25 knots submerged is quieter than a Los Angeles class 688I, which is the improved version, which is quieter than any Soviet sub of the day or today's Russian subs. And it's at 25 knots submerged, a Seawolf or Virginia class is quieter than a 688I is tied up to the pier.
Yeah,
they don't make noise. They don't make noise. And the Ohio boats, that's our deterrent against China, Russia, North Korea, or the idiots in the Middle East. That's our ace in the hole.
Mm-hmm.
And they practice emergency drills every day. They're on patrol. Yeah. And you don't operate by any you operate by Zulu time, which is GMT. Yeah.
The funny thing is, when Trump was in Australia, when he was president, he was talking to our prime ministers. He'll say, "Why do you want to buy Norwegian submarines when we've got submarines we can give you?"
They have gone in. They've started to sign an agreement, even with the current administration, that we are going to let them, I think, purchase 2 or 3 Los Angeles class improved, the 688Is. That's when they've taken the bow planes off the sail and put them on the hull. And they also have the 12 vertical launch tubes in the bow. And And then they're going to go under contract, and we're going to build up to 5 Virginia class
Yeah.
fast attacks. And part of the provisions that I think the reactor area, everything to do with the nuke part of the propulsion, would be handled even with on the 688s in the Virginia class, will be run by the United States Navy. They'll give them everything else, but that technology, they want to keep close to their vest. And New Zealand was I think kicked the can around, but they had a very liberal government. But I just read today that the liberal government of New Zealand have been ousted, and they have a conservative leader again. So
Yeah, they had apparently New Zealand left the ANZUS Treaty a couple of years ago, I think, and but they'll come back to the fold. They will come back to the fold.
yeah.
But
To go back to the Nimitz class carrier, or the Gerald Ford class carrier, they're incredible. They're incredible war-making machines or rescuing machines. They can make tens of thousands of gallons of fresh water every day. They have 2 very large reactors. Now, on a submarine, they make about 12,000 gallons of fresh water a day. And you say, well, how would they need that much water? Well, the thing that gets water the first is the reactor, and then the needs of the crew after that.
Isn't also part of an air purification as well?
They have scrubbers in there that scrubs the CO2 out of the atmosphere, and they have they burn hydrogen to clear that out. The only limiting factor on a submarine is food. They make their own water, 12,000 gallons a day, and they make their own air. So, but the one thing on the submarine crew is when they come back off of patrol, they call them stinkies, because when if they've run the diesel auxiliary motor, the whole inside of the sub is going to stink like you're living inside of a motor. And the other thing, you can't use deodorant, because the active ingredient in most deodorants will clog up the CO2 scrubbers.
Right. Okay.
So
everybody's a little bit on the nose, eh?
Yeah.
And in the nose.
Yeah, and I have to wait to get on an SSGN to have my 3rd volume on submarines done. That's on the Ohio boats. But I have to request a trip on a Virginia class submarine leaving Puget Sound Naval Shipyards after refit, heading back to Pearl Harbor, and they take 10 days to do that. They can do it like in 7, but they go through and they go to test depth. They do the 1 or more emergency blows, and it's gonna be fun. It will be my. I've already been to 400 feet deep on a ballistic missile submarine. So, Moon at Noon, explains the hazardous duty pay, and they don't have any problems in reenlistment in the submarine service, both in the enlisted and the officers' ranks. They just, if you're a submariner, that's something that's in your DNA, and I just admire them. And I've had so much fun working on my submarine books. My newest one comes out on November 21st, and it's called Nautilus to Columbia Class. And I cover 227 nuclear-powered submarines built or under construction for the United States Navy.
Send me the cover of that, will you? That I can post it on my page, will you? At a later date.
I will do this as we're chatting.
Okay.
Let me see, where the hell we at? Yeah. And
So,
I'll let you guys gab as I'm trying to.
so I was going to
So-
ask, what do you guys think about the prospect of this going into a regional World War III kind of motif and a scale of 1 to 10? B, what do you think?
Well, I guess I'm on screen.
Yeah.
It makes me wonder, if since China has their own little subcategory war going on, and you have Israel and you have the highlights across the whole globe. Is this a pre-stage for what's going on behind the scenes so China and Russia can do their thing? Or, I mean, that's what I'm trying to figure out is,
I think that's quite possible. I mean, they keep the left hand busy while the right hand's doing the dirty work. Yeah.
Yeah, but
absolutely.
right now, China's largest investment organization is it's the real estate grouping. I can't remember. I
Going
don't,
bust.
pardon?
Evergrande.
Yeah,
It's going broke,
yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, and apparently they may go tits up. That may be the end.
Well,
And
so let me go back to my question. A scale of 1 to 10. And Gerald, I appreciate what you were saying about, the whole idea of what's going to happen with Russia, with China. You've got Saudi Arabia that's in this mix. You've got South America. Was it Argentina just declared 130% interest rate? You've got the entire South American economies basically falling apart. You've got Ecuador having all kinds of problems. There's supposed to be an election, I think, this weekend. There's amid all kinds of gang violence. There's a bunch of conflict going on all over the place. Some of it is connected, but a lot of it is not. A lot of it, to me, seems to be a bunch of shit just falling apart, stuff that's broken, and not unlike our southern border. So let's go back to what's happening right now as it relates to the Hebrews and the Gaza Strip with these gypsy Arabs in it. On a scale of 1 to 10, do you think that this conflict will be the catalyst for a World War III? Mr. B, what do you think? Scale of 1 to 10.
I'd give it a 7.
7?
Yep, 7 straight out.
So you think that it's a possibility, but there's still a probability or possibility that you think it's a probability, but there's a possibility that it won't. That's 3.
If they tread lightly, it won't happen. But if they rush in like a bull in a china shop, yes, it's definitely going to happen. It's a hard one to play.
Jane, what do you think?
I say probably about a 7. Like I said, I've been following this for so many years, and it seems like every summer around July or August, missiles start going off around Israel. Things heat up, and you're going, oh, are we getting closer? Is it going to be a war? It's going to be a war. Well, this year it actually is a war. So is it going to continue, or is it going to calm down again like it seems like it does every single year?
So let me just probe a little bit on that. Is this really fall into the traditional war category?
I don't know. I mean, who
doesn't seem to
declared
me-
it war? They've been going missiles back and forth for so many years.
Over a decade,
Yeah,
or
right.
more. So this really doesn't seem like a war. It seems like a regional skirmish to me.
Mhm. So who declared it a war?
Well, the talking heads, the people that
Okay.
want us to think that that's what's going on. But
Right.
I don't, to me, from what the information again that I'm seeing, I'm very skeptical, but I don't see a war. I see
Right.
a clash of a bunch of people that haven't gotten along together since they became who they are. And one is big and mighty and the other is tiny and spunky. And the
Right.
spunky ones decided to try something that is going to be most likely the end of them. We don't need to send in an aircraft carrier or submarines or fighters or anything else. Israel is completely capable of taking out this
Mhm.
group by themselves. They're right next door. They're right there, and so forth. So,
Right.
on the scale of 1 to 10, for me, I think it's a 4 or 5. because I don't think it's a war. I think it's a skirmish that has been boiling for too long, and it now is coming to a head. Jim, what do you think? Scale of 1 to 10, World War III or not?
A 2 to 3. I mean, what we have is a group of people, like, we've all said, and even the news said, they've been trying to kill each other since before Christ was born,
Yeah.
That's true.
and in the same neighborhood. So
Yeah.
But it's the only thing that could possibly go wrong if Syria decide to flex their muscles, which will be a huge mistake.
Well,
Mhm.
we're in Syria now. We own their oil fields, so
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think they're going to get all uppity about this. We're right there. We're in their backyard.
or Hezbollah, in southern Lebanon.
Yes.
It wouldn't surprise me for the Israelis to say, "Okay, world, I'm gonna go there. We're gonna go after these bastards, and we're gonna kill them all."
Mhm.
We're tired. We're tired of burying our babies and our children and our wives. It's time that this ends. We lost 6 million of us here a couple of years ago. We're not going to go through that again.
Yeah.
And Netanyahu, not only, I don't think it was Netanyahu, a gentleman I worked for back in the 60s, Harvey Seltzer, is very big in Israeli politics. Or he lived in Studio City there in LA. And he said last time he was in Israel, he was talking to, I don't know if it was Moshe Dayan or who it was. Now, this is back in the 60s, long
Isn't
time
that
ago.
Golda Meir time?
Yeah, that era.
That era? Yeah.
The thinking of the Israeli people is, if they see that Israel is lost, they're going to turn the entire Middle East into green glass.
Mm-hmm.
If we're not allowed to survive in our homeland, you're not going to have a homeland, and you won't survive.
Yeah.
So what Hamas did to Israel a week ago is, I hear what Yamamoto said about attacking Pearl Harbor. I said, I think we just awoken was it a tiger or a dragon? I can't remember which one. And they've awakened a horrible resolve from the American people, and that's what I think, that this was the straw that broke the camel's back, as far as, what, we're tired of this crap, and we're not going to do it anymore. And Hamas in any shape or form will no longer exist for multiple generations.
Did you notice how they declared the day of jihad for yesterday, Friday the 13th, and they made a big deal calling all Arab and brethren to join in this jihad, and it was a rounding failure. It just whimpered and nothing really happened. And I think what's happening, and Gerald, I want to get your 1 to 10 on this, but I think what's happening is that Hamas just made themselves so dislikable, even among the apologists and the virtue signaling victimizers, that nobody wants to deal with them. And because nobody has wanted to deal with them, they get kicked out of every country that they have been in. I think that MBS over in Saudi Arabia I think part of the thought that Hamas was, well, MBS and Israel were getting ready to finish off the Abraham Accords. Hamas didn't want that, so we're going to create a schism. And I think that there's an opportunity for a clean out of Hamas by the Israeli military and intelligence and secret service. I think that they'll be successful in that. And then there's going to be this big pile of shit that needs to be cleaned up and rebuilt. And I think that if Saudi Arabia took a lead role, I don't know if any of you, if you've seen any of the pictures of Saudi Arabia and Dubai, and these cities down there are, I mean, they're not world class. They are the class of the world. They have their buildings and their technology and their planning and infrastructure is just beyond anything else that's out there. It is unbelievable. And
Very advanced.
they've got the money, and they are Arab. And I think if they took, after Hamas is cleaned out, if they had some kind of an agreement with Israel and maybe a few others, maybe Egypt, and they said, we're going to go in and we're going to, now that these bad guys are out, we're going to take and clean up the mess, and we're going to rebuild Gaza, and we're going to make it modern, and we're going to provide the people there the ability to have a self-sustaining economy. And we'll take a custodial role in providing the incentives and the funding to rebuild it, and take the people who are the refugees and give them a new little country that's been rebuilt with all the latest shit, because there's nothing there we're saving or keeping. It needs to be scraped off and built, rebuilt from the ground up, actually the underground up, because apparently there's a massive tunnel system under there where all these bad guys are hiding. But I think that that's an opportunity that we may see unfold. We may see that the Arab, the Shias, the Sunnis, all the different delineations that are in the Muslim belief system are going to find something, use this oddly enough as a unifying event, to where they can actually do something good and create, take a disaster and turn it into something that nobody could see at the time, because it's clear that Hamas and the people that have been on that piece of land, they haven't figured out how to do shit.
Hey,
They don't have anything. There's nothing that they can't do it for themselves, let alone provide anything of value to the rest of the world.
What's your take on this, Gerald?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I think it's a 3 or a 4. I don't think we're at a war yet, or a world war. Definitely not. It's more regionalized, like Robert said. And you have the United States has always backed Israel and always been an ally. Whether the Bidens are just giving lip service right at the moment is yet to be seen. Then you got Saudi Arabia, I believe, is in ties with Israel now, that they're in support with them, I believe. So I think they're getting all these allies, and like Robert was saying, kind of in Saudi Arabia against the terrorists, against Hamas and all these other factions, and so it is a good chance that we could see the Gaza Strip, become peaceful after they take care of Hamas. But then my question is that leading us towards the peace agreement that is biblically talked about?
Well, look,
I think that makes sense to me.
I remember going back to where Arafat, was doing the peace talk before he died. And the Israeli says, well, okay, we're going to give back the token at the land we won, in the 4-day war. And apparently it didn't really happen, because even though they made an agreement, the Israelis still were building settlements on there. And now, if you're going to give something back, you're not going to build in an infrastructure and give it away. I mean, it's not economics. But the thing is, sorry, yes, Jim.
I mean, when Israel gave Gaza to the PLO, all the industry, the greenhouses and everything productive that was there when the Israelis left, they trashed it all. Everything that could improve their life, they had, I say, all these nurseries where you can grow vegetables year round.
Yeah.
And what did they do? They went in and they destroyed it all.
Wow.
Well, this is the crazy thing. See, after the Second World War, you had this exodus, and the United Nations gave the Jewish people Israel, and nobody really wanted that region. Nobody cared, because it was just a dust ball. It really was a dust ball. And well, the Jews exodus, they done their thing. They actually created the kibbutz, and now it's flourishing. I mean, the
Yep.
farming and the light industry, it's brilliant now. And now they're becoming what I call a model for the area. They are model. They created something out of nothing. It's just a matter of survival. They had to do it, and everybody put their 2 bits worth in with their conscription and all that stuff. Everybody had to go and do 2 years in the kibbutz, and it was a survival because they were misfits in Europe. They had no home. Their homes are destroyed. How could they go back to their own home? Well, but when other people have taken over their residence after being kicked out, and of
Doesn't
course,
that sound like the history of the Hebrews?
yes, just absolutely.
I mean, how many different countries have they been shoved around, guided through, run to, run from over the history that we know? I mean, there's apparently a fair amount of Russian Hebrews that are in Israel that are a part of that population. And let me throw this one other thing out. I think that this is also not only the opportunity to take out Hamas, but I think if I was to ask you what is the most valuable information on the planet right now, just the information and the most valuable, what could it be? I personally think, because I'm an information kind of guy, I think it's the location of the 5 mullahs, imams, or whoever that run Iran. I think that is the next target because apparently not only Iran, but you've got Qatar and a few others that have been basically providing all the funding for the quote unquote Palestinians that are not Palestinians, that are they're Gazians if they're anything, right? Because they're in this Gaza Strip. But I think that there's no doubt that Iran was involved, supported it in some way, if not was right there next to them while they're pulling the command trigger. But I think that this is going to be an excuse to go get rid of those guys. And I think that would be another one of those wins in the long term, because the population of Iran, if you look at Tehran in the 70s, any video from the 70s and early 80s, well, the Shah was there. I mean, it looked like Philadelphia. I mean, the Iranian people themselves are very pro-Western. They like the whole Western culture, and they imitated it. And
but their politics are scary. They're the biggest threat. Their politics.
So if you took out the mullahs and the ayatollahs and you got rid of those so that the people could be liberated, I think that Iran could very easily become an ally. So if you've got Hamas gone, you've got Saudi Arabia, and they're helping rebuild this strip of land for these refugee people, and you get the mullahs taken out of Iran, they're all of a sudden the entire region and the dynamics there changed dramatically, in my opinion. I think it becomes something like you were talking about with this, this peace period. That could be something that those events could be the kind of events I think it would take to get us into a peaceful Middle East in at least the short term. So Iran, what do you guys think? Do you think Iran and the mullahs are next?
Oh, definitely.
I have some Iranian friends, and they said you won't find a more pro-Western Middle East country than Iran.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just that 2% or the 5% of the mullahs and the wannabe dictators.
They're religious sect, mate. Let's get it straight. It's their religious nuts that are doing it,
And isn't it interesting? That's the same thing that's going on in this Gaza Strip Palestinian thing. It's a small group of ideological leaders that have the stranglehold over the people that the people are trying to deal with, but they're the ones causing the shit. Same thing over in Iran. You've got a handful of mullahs, ayatollahs, or whoever over there that are running around wearing turbans and doing their religious stuff, and the rest of the country, the people, all they want to do is be like us, be Western. So I think the decapitation of these heads of these ideologies that have been driving the strife and the crap is what we're about to see. And I think that alone could be a catalyst for some type of moderate environment over there where people can actually stop yelling and fighting and throwing rocks at each other and try to get along and figure out how to make the most of what they got.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if their DNA will allow that.
Well, I think the DNA actually will, and it's not the DNA that's the problem. It's the mental parasites. It's the stuff that's been shoved into the minds of the people about, you know, religions and ideologies and belief systems and who's good and who's bad. All of it is ancient. It's all medieval thinking. The folks that are doing the best are the ones who aren't conducting themselves based on old crap. The Israelis, the Saudi Arabians, again, Dubai. If you just do a YouTube search on downtown Dubai and take a look at that. I mean, these guys, they're into cryptos, blockchain. They have an efficient, automated society that is free and open, and it's just all the latest modern stuff. There's no other city in the world that compares to what they're doing down there. There's little pockets in like Tokyo and Sao Paulo and some in Europe. In the United States, we don't have shit going on here. We have a bunch of broken old institutions, systems, infrastructure that is just, it's out. All of it has outlived its shelf life, and it's all broken. None of it is working. So we need to rebuild too, but we can't keep if we're going to rebuild and get things cleaned up, we can't be funneling in money and weapons and manufacturing through proxy countries so that we can the folks that are running that stuff can continue to make all the money they're making. The industrial pharmaceutical complex and the industrial military and the industrial tech and the industrial media, all of that has been abysmal failures in doing. They got started on a good note, but they have deteriorated because of ideology, because of thinking that is not working anymore. And that's what we see over in the Middle East. You have Hamas is an ideology of religious belief that is just based on bullshit. And when you add emotional content to the intention of your belief, then you just make bad decisions and you make a mess wherever you go. And that's what they've been doing. It's my opinion.
Well, I totally agree with you.
Me too.
Well, shit.
And,
So,
yes, carry on.
Yeah,
on.
I have to make a comment to Jane.
Yes.
I just realized you have an eyeball just right next to your ear. Yeah, now I can see both sides. I mean,
It's
that
an owl, isn't it?
something I wasn't paying attention.
A nice
to,
headrest you get there, that furry,
Yeah.
furry headrest.
Yeah, it just sort of caught my attention. Oh, your kitty, yeah,
Like I will.
yeah.
No, it's a tiger. It's a tiger, isn't it? Hey, yeah.
Yeah. And I have one down here wanting on my lap also.
Well, I have a rescued German Shepherd dog, and she's
Aw.
named Scarlet. She is just she's as sweet as could be. She was
She's
born
your
and
best mate, mate.
she was born and raised on the street of
Aw.
Phoenix. I think once she was weaned, she was on her own, and they picked her up. She was about a little over a year old, as they figure. And she's the most loving thing. She doesn't know how to fetch. She doesn't know how to to do anything other than steal your heart.
Aw.
And
Those are the worst.
All our animals are strays. We either take in strays or we've had 2 rescues. You know, dogs that had no home, so we took them in, whether they were family members or other people's. And we've only bought like 1 or 2 dogs. And they weren't from any of the mill factories. They were from people who actually bred them locally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's those puppy dog eyes that get me, you know. The big brown eyes, they look up at you, you know, saying, yeah, we've got a dog here. Every time I walk in the room, it goes and picks up this soft toy and brings it to me. wants to catch all the time. Fetch.
Yep.
And if I don't, he'll actually stand up on his back legs with it in his mouth going, take it out of my mouth, why don't you? And then he drops it and starts barking at me until I play with him. Then I play with him for about 15 minutes. And then he just collapses on the floor, belly on the floor. That's it. I'm done. And he's happy. Then he ignores me. I don't want to know I've used you up now, so I don't need you anymore. But yes, it's let's just lift all this up to the highest and hope that a bit of peace and harmony comes back to this world. I mean, we need it, don't we? Definitely need it. And it's a crazy world. And it's, it's like when people talk about prophecies, I mean, I don't really follow with prophecies all that much, because I can prophesy there's going to be a war in the next 50 odd years somewhere. I can guarantee there's an aeroplane that's going to fall out the sky within the next maybe 10 or 15 years. And it will happen. But doesn't make me a prophet. It just I know the law of averages.
It makes you a statistical conspiracy analyst.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, shit happens, and you don't need to prophesy about it. It happens, And when they say the end is near, that's true. The end is near for somebody.
So here's another question.
Yep.
Which do you think will happen first? The end of this conflict, this skirmish that's going on now in the Middle East with Israel and Gaza, or the end of the Ukrainian war? Which one do you think will happen first?
You mean which will end first?
Yeah, which one will end, either the conflict now or the Ukrainian conflict? Do you think?
Like I said, I think this Israel conflict has been going on for years and years and years and years and years. It hasn't stopped. This just kind of got worse a little bit the last week or so.
I'll say the Ukrainian will come to an end sooner.
You think the Ukrainian war will get resolved before the Israeli-Gaza conflict?
Oh, definitely.
Everything, if you don't listen to the lying bastards on the mainstream media, which I don't, saying Ukraine is lost. They have lost the war, and they're not. No one's going to give them any more ammunition. And where did the $84 billion of American taxpayer money go to? In whose pockets? There has to be an audit, and those people should be taken to task for committing treason, as far as I'm concerned. Because I bet it's 2/3 or more of those thieves called the United States Congress and U.S. Senate.
Yeah, it's like
the House,
Sorry. It's like the French tried to get involved in the American Civil War, didn't they? By backing the South.
Yeah.
Same scenario. Same scenario. Not the South lost.
Or BlackRock and Vanguard in the U.S.
Yeah.
So, Gerald, what do you think? Ukraine first or the Israeli conflict with Hamas first? Well,
I think the Ukraine and Russia war is going to end soon, but like you said, we could have a peace treaty or a little silence on the Gaza Strip before that ends, just because all eyes are on Israel right now. But that doesn't mean peace is going to stay in the Middle East. And once that peace treaty is signed or they'll stop firing, eventually something else will come up with Israel and they'll attack it again. I think that's going to go on forever until Christ comes. Yeah. I do think Ukraine and Russia is a dead subject.
Yeah.
So, Jim, what about you? When do you think? Which one?
I don't believe there's any way this time that the Israelis will negotiate, period.
Not at the moment.
Yeah, no.
They're going to go in and finish
now until the end of time. I don't think Israel is going. Netanyahu and a number of their generals and commanders they've interviewed on various overseas TV interviews. Well, they're at the forefront of their war with Hamas. They said, we're not going to stop. This is a army officer, I think he's a general, but I'm not sure, said, we're not going to stop until Hamas is no longer on this earth, is basically what he said.
Mhm.
So they're going to wipe Hamas off the face of the earth.
Do you think this could be something like Netanyahu's Trumpian ISIS moment where, Trump went in and said, all right, that's enough of ISIS. We're going to go clear them out. Do you think
Yeah.
this is where not Netanyahu is?
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And, Ukraine's already lost the war. And I believe, and I may be wrong. I have been a few times. And what's their names? Yeah. Okay. Never mind.
Yeah. They were all tied to marriages. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the world is tired of giving anything and everything to Zelensky. He's banned elections. He's banned certain political parties. He's banned certain religions.
He shut down churches, political folks.
Yeah,
I gotta say that I'm gonna give Zelensky the award, the top dog award, for creating the biggest GoFundMe in known history.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy, all he's doing is going around and trying to sell his shit, and and get people to donate. I mean, I don't think there's even a whole lot of strings attached to a lot of the money that's been put over there. I heard also that I think it was General Douglas. I think maybe his name is McFarland, but he was saying this guy seems to be pretty dialed in. That only 30% of the investment is actually the weapons and whatever they're buying and whatever's being shipped. Only 30% has actually made it to the front lines. And you go, well, okay, that sounds probably like it's true. Is there anybody that's going to ask for an audit? Is there going to be any transparency on anything?
Right.
No, they're members.
If so, why not?
They're members.
No, it won't happen.
On the right are saying that there has to be an accounting of where everything, who got what. And I think 80% or more of the Congress critters are on the take. And I think everything's being funneled through the Ukraine. And it has been forever. You look at whose children and nephews and whatever are on boards, energy boards in Ukraine making, $83,000 a month was Hunter. He probably doesn't even know how to pump his own gas. But
I don't think he could start a push mower.
Yeah.
But
so who's going to take the accounting? I mean, if the majority of who's in control now is all on the take or getting money funneled back to them, because they're not going to want it to trace back to them.
Right.
Well, I think that, and that's a great question, but I think that it has to be premised with what will it look like when it ends? So let's talk about that for a second. Based on what we've seen, I mean, we've seen basically almost 2 years of a majority of the fighting along the border, and Russia could easily go in and take over the entire country, even with all the resources we've pumped into it. But it seems to be more about Putin. I call him the Poot. Has been more focused on the people that have been around this border region, which for the most part are Russian, Kazakh, and these people have been taking it hard for a long time from these quote unquote Nazis, or these people that identify as Nazis. So it seems as though his intention was to go protect, and he had made statements, stop screwing with these people, stop bombing them, stop killing them, or I'm coming in. And that's basically what it did. It's not as much about NATO, I don't think, as it is about the Russians. And if you haven't seen Oliver Stone's, I was mentioning this to Jim the other night. Oliver Stone did a series back in like 2012, 2013, somewhere around there. The Secret History of America. And it's a multi-part series. And he goes into from the early 1900s through what happened with the First World War, the Roaring '20s, the Depression, the World War II, and all of a lot of very interesting stuff that I hadn't seen before. And it's interesting how Stalin, he was actually he loved Roosevelt. Roosevelt and Stalin got along famously. It was Churchill who apparently was the third leg of the stool that kind of, laid little turds on the table every time they got together. But in the information that's available, Stalin was very much, apparently what he felt about Roosevelt was very much what the Russians were. They were very populist. They're nationalists. They are, you talk to Russians and they are mother country, and they are hardcore mother country. And we have a nationalist thing about being an American. And so there was a lot of similarity in the way that the cultures and our countries were. And that's one of the reasons we were able to have a reasonable alliance. But there was some other shenanigans and shit going down. But my point is this. Putin seems to be a populist, nationalist kind of guy. He's not trying to go conquer the world. He's got more resources in the 12 time zones that they have than any other part of the world on its own or combined. It's just an amazing amount of resources. What he's been doing apparently is actually creating a very robust economy by utilizing those resources. But they've had this moniker that's been placed on them as, the Soviets who invaded this and, the Cold War and all this other shit. They've moved way past that. Nobody's going to fire a nuke, in my opinion. Nobody wants to fire a nuke because they know it would be the end of everything. The whole mutually assured destruction, the mad thing of the Reagan years, it reached its peak back then. I mean, now there's so much dependency on the globalization of the interaction through all of the global economy that has to be fixed because it doesn't work anymore. But all of the resources and need and want to exchange and do commerce is everywhere.
I have a question.
Everywhere. So nobody wants to take that out. They want to get the most out of it. And the only way that can happen now is people are realizing that blowing each other up doesn't work. Going and having wars is costly and it's not productive. The only way that you can have any kind of prosperity along with security and peace is to go get your shit straight and go to work with everybody else in the world. And I think that's what we're starting to see. Now, that's my idyllic kind of scenario but I see the possibilities of that. I think that it's real. I think we actually are going to go through this and go, boy, are we glad we're on the other side of that, because look what we got now.
I have a question here. Let's say the Russians, when they win the Ukraine war, what's going to happen to all the hardware? All the billions of dollars of hardware that's been pumped into the country. I mean, what's going to happen to
you? Talking about the military hardware?
What
Yes,
makes you think some of that didn't end up with Hezbollah or Hamas or some other terrorist organization?
That's true.
Right.
I agree. Because they actually said there was some U.S. weaponry used in the attack on Israel.
Well, that came from Afghanistan more than likely.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, the 85 billion that we left.
We pulled
A
out
gift
of
from behind.
Afghanistan.
Yeah.
They should have. I mean, if they were ever going to use a nuke, they should have used it right there.
Have any of you seen a thank you card from the Taliban?
No.
No.
I haven't. You would think by now they'd at least send a cake or something.
Except there'll be a bomb in it. That's the only problem.
It probably looked like an alien.
Oh, this is wonderful. Yes. Well, this is it. I mean, where's it all going to go? I mean, look. I mean, people like myself. I mean, I've got all that many more years to go in my life, but I still like to be able to sit on a nice beach somewhere and enjoy the sunshine without a bit of radiation, give me skin cancer and stuffing my liver up. A few margaritas. You know what I mean, Jim?
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's I mean, I feel very concerned for my grandchildren, and that's where the main concern is. It's what kind of a legacy are we leaving them?
I mean,
And,
Mr. B, what you were saying, it reminds me of Randy Newman's Political Science. Robert, do you ever remember that one?
Yes.
I mean,
There's a
sort of-
flashback. Whoa.
highlight me. Hey, highlight me. I mean, I really don't. I'm not there with you guys on this one. Go on, share.
Oh.
Yeah.
Share. Come on, share.
I think I don't know. I'm an optimist. I have to be.
We all got to be.
And I know I know in my heart I'm going to live another 20 years at least. And that bothers me a little bit, but that would put me almost at 100.
Yeah, I've got long life longevity in my family. It goes right up into the mid-90s.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I had the same, but I don't know what it is, but somewhere in my 30s, I started thinking about, well, shit, I'm reached my 30s and nobody thought I'd get that far, and the 40s are just there. So let's see what happens there. And the next thing, it was the 50s, and then it's the 60s. But even back in the 30s, I thought, I'm here for a reason, and I got stuff to do. And the longer I'm here, the further behind I get. So I feel like I'm so far behind in what I'm here to do that I'm going to be $120 or more before I'm done, before I can check out. So when I would think about what it would be like to be 50 or 60, like I was, seeing my parents, when I was 20.
God, they were old at 50.
Oh my God, they were so old. And that's one of the things I'm really surprised. It surprises me all the time how old people my age look. I mean, I just sit there and I go, "What? Wait a minute. You're how old?" And it's like, you can't be as old. You look like you're 20 years older than me. What's going on here?
Me and Jane talked about that all the time, looking back, thinking about our parents being old all the time, they're so much older than us, but now that we're there at their age, it's like, no, this ain't right. Something's wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On my mom's,
I never thought of that. What I thought of being this age when I thought about it, 30 or 40 years ago, I'm thinking, well, that's not going to be any fun. That based on current course of speed that I'm seeing of people that have gotten there, I gotta switch gears. I gotta, change this thing up. But I feel like I'm in my mid 40s, and I'm 20 years older than that. So I think, $120 is doable. It depends on if I get off my ass and actually get the stuff done I'm here to do. But it feels like even if all I did starting right now and went and got all the things done that I want to do, I'd still have to be 120 in order to get it all done.
yeah. And I know, I mean, in my heart of hearts, I'm either 15 or 35. Sometimes just 12.
When I was 17, Jim, my father pulled me aside and he says, "You realize, son, by the time you get to, if you're lucky, get to 35, he says, you might get to 35. I reckon you're going to be dead by then." And I looked at him and he turned around and said, "Well, let's put it this way." He said, "If you don't change your attitude, I will kill you." Size clip across the ear and a size 12 boot up the backside. That's my father, ex-Royal Marine Commander. Tough as nails, mate. Tough as
one of my scariest but favorite phrases was, "I brought you into the world and I can take you out."
Yeah, I've heard that one too. And my mom was 100% Sicilian, and she was born on Halloween. And the day she was born in 1918, was in the middle of the Spanish flu epidemic. And that week, 125 babies were born in Pittsburgh, California, and only 2 survived. My mother was one of them.
Wow.
But she could put a curse on you. You didn't cross. I mean, she wouldn't have to say a word. All she had to do is give you that look, and she would make Mom was 5'1", black hair, black eyes, a radiant smile on her face. She would either warm up a room or turn it into a deep freeze if you were on the wrong side of her. She was something else, but she could look at someone. She could read personalities. I was raised by an incredible mom, and I think that's why most of the women I've been married to have all been really smart. So,
well, do you know what, my mother?
How'd that work out for you, Jim?
Actually, people say, "Why do you call
great
yourself?"
now.
Pete?
I mean,
Yeah.
Hey, come on, you're going to like this one. Hey, people say to me, "Why do you call yourself B?" Because when I was a young kid, if my eldest brothers got into trouble, they'd be called by their first name. When I used to get into trouble by my parents, "Are you little bastard?" And of course, a mate of mine, I was only about 9. A mate of mine heard my mum say that, "You little bastard," and of course he started calling me B. Hey, B, and of course all my schoolmates started calling me B. Everybody starts calling me B because my name is Terrance Beckwith with a B-E-C-K, right?
yeah.
And of course, everybody said, "Call, hello, Mrs. B," to my mum. So I ended up becoming the little B, the little bastard. So I've been stuck with B all my life. so henceforth, B. That's me. So yeah, quite. It's funny. I was a little tearaway when I was a young fella. Really was. I think it wasn't until I actually joined the army where, I was pulled apart and put back together again. Literally.
The military is what saved me.
Hmm.
I was on the road. I was on the road to oblivion, and I had a choice on my 17th birthday: go in the service or go to juvenile hall until you're 18 as an incorrigible youth.
Yeah, very similar to me, Jim, because I got busted with about 15 tabs of LSD. And I was with a rock band at the time, a guitar rhythm guitarist, and of course. Back then, you didn't have a criminal record until the actual judge says this, bang. So I went and joined the army, and I became their problem. And of course, after I swore the oath, and everything, then I told them I've got to appear in court. They looked at me. All the papers had been signed. So I ended up getting legal representation of the army, and then they, and of course, he's in the court there, and the judge looked at me and says, "Okay, let the army sort you out. If I see you in this court again, I might just throw whatever. You're going to get this charge thrown on you as well, and you will do time." So I went to the army, and of course, as I'm walking out, the officer looked at me and says, "You don't think you got away with it, son?" my old basic training was hell, literally hell. To the point, go. Okay, you're on garrison duty tonight. Go and walk the perimeter. It's raining outside. I don't care. Go out there. Makes the grass grow. Go out. Go on. That made it tough for me, mate. Yes, Jim. Yeah. I can relate.
I mean, I can remember standing in a garbage can in the common area of there at Lackland Air Force Base, and Sergeant Hansen was screaming at me. His face is about this far from me. And I was I was raised by a Sicilian mother, but I was raised by a dad who was like 6'4", who was born and raised in the infantry. So I was raised under military dictatorship. And this Sergeant Hansen was yelling and screaming. And I'm sitting there, all of a sudden I realize I'm going to laugh, and I can't stop myself. I'm pinching my leg, I'm biting inside of my lip. And all of a sudden I just burst out laughing. He said, "What's so goddamn funny?" I mean, he was just trembling. He was so angry. He said, "Nothing's hurt. Don't hand me that." And he said, "You gonna tell me this, or you're gonna be in there all day long." There's it's late May in San Antonio, Texas. It's getting hot and it's getting humid. And I said, "So doesn't this bother you?" And I said, "Well, compared to my dad, you're a rank amateur." Oh, off I went, and he said, and I got knocked me out of the garbage can. I had to go. I got back in the garbage can. He went for another 40 minutes, 45 minutes.
Jim, it didn't do you any harm, did it? Hey, today they call that abuse.
Yeah.
Well,
no,
And
but-
you don't have respect.
You think about this, we all got our asses whooped when we were growing up, and then that transferred into timeout. Now,
Yeah.
I've got my own observation is that the ass whooping group
turned out much
severely
better.
outperforms the
Yeah.
timeout group
Yeah.
in all categories, and I think that's the one thing about the military that both BU and Jim were talking about, that I think the training and the discipline and the responsibility that you are forced to do in the military environment. Forget about the killing and the ammunition, the weaponry and the guns and all that stuff. The regiment of having to do your shit on time, be able to pop that quarter off that sheet, everything.
In my days, it's called bed boxes, where you had to fold the sheets with all the stripes lined up in a row.
But that training is what's missing in the youth in the last couple of generations.
Everything is missing from today's youth.
That is so discipline, which has the accountability, the responsibility, the dependability, the repeatability that you learn by being in a regimented environment, that they don't understand that shit at all. And that's why they're literally, like I said, they can't start a push mower. I mean, because they don't know what that even means, let alone what to do with it.
I think the important thing is, and Jim will agree, it's the comradeship. The comradeship where you can trust the guy next to you. You can depend on him.
That's another one, yeah.
My best friend in the entire world is named Richard Lee Branham. I met him on September 9th, 1962 at Lowry Air Force Base in building 296, room 12. And I knew the moment I met him that he would be my friend. And 60 some odd years later, he's still my best friend. And he's, something good or something bad happens in my life. One of the first persons I call him RB. I call RB.
Yeah.
And he's, if he has it, he would give it to me. If I needed his life, he would give me that. That's the
I've got a friend like that over in
and those are
Sydney.
rare. Those are very, very rare people. And I've been blessed to have a few of those in my life. None can compare to Rick. He's the true definition of what a true friend really is.
Yeah, true friends are they're scarce. And we've all got friends. What are they really friends? I call them acquaintances. Really.
Yeah, I have hundreds of thousands of acquaintances, but only a few people that I feel close to.
I mean, most of them now. I mean, I've only got about 2 left now. Most of them have passed away. As you get older, you're saying goodbye to each one at a time. And that's the sad thing.
Yeah, I'm 78. I only have I have less than 6 months, and I turned 79, my last birthday.
Oh, you poor old fuck. I'm coming up behind you there, mate.
But I'm still ahead of you, no matter what you do. Unless I start pushing up
Jim,
weeds.
I've never come across a teenager as young as you, mate. Honestly, in heart, and energy. Mate, you travel all over the frigging country in a bloody sports car.
And we got the okay from the village in Belize. We are officially, legally, the exclusive entity to excavate their pyramid complex.
Oh, brilliant!
Oh, wow.
Awesome.
Yeah, and and so we're going to Belize and meet with the director of NISH, which is the National Institute for Culture and Heritage.
Yeah, make sure you take some electrolytes with you when you go this time, Jim.
I'm not going to be going on a death march. No, I'm We're gonna do a LiDAR scan of at least one of the pyramids. And there's 3 pyramids in this complex, and they haven't been excavated. They did a little bit on the top, but that's
So
about it.
how many trips are they planning on this all up? Any idea? Is it this is stage 2 you're going on?
Once we have the money, we've done the 12-part season 1 of the excavation of the lost city, and we already have enough video, 4 and 5K video and stuff that we shot with our iPhones to put together something for actually 12 different episodes. And we already had that all lined out. And
I reckon this is something Jen would love to do, something like that. What do you reckon, Jen? Would you be in for something like that? Going down to Belize, going over there, looking around the old pyramids?
I don't know. It's not safe going. It's not safe going to other countries these days. It seems like.
Belize is not a problem. Belize is not a problem.
It's South America, mate. It's safe around there. It's not just off Bermuda, isn't it? It's not Bermuda. What's the ocean there?
Caribbean.
How do we sign up for
Caribbean?
this?
Yeah. How do we sign up? Yeah.
So,
well, Ecuador, for a long time has been a favorite place of expats, and it's been, hailed as, a great place to go live if you want to, if you're American.
Isn't that where the cocaine fields are?
Now it's turned to shit, and Argentina has turned to shit. Venezuela's turned to shit. And then you got all of the Central American countries, below.
Nicaragua was supposed to be the big one, the big place now. That and Costa Rica.
Yeah. And so if you reminded me, Jim, I've got a couple of new research articles I want to send to you and Jared. They've done a series of LiDAR in the Yucatan, which, is just north of Belize where you're at. And they have found another shitload of buildings and centers and that they didn't know was there. And there's some very interesting mystery school stuff about the Yucatan. And Edgar Casey, for example, talks about, he had talked about that Atlantis would rise in the 60s at some point. And it was in 69 when they found what they call the Bermuda Road. But that whole region, it's also known as the hot zone. And there is a lot of people chasing information that seems to indicate that in the Yucatan in particular is what Casey talks about. There are 3 halls of records around the world. There's one under the Sphinx, the right paw of the Sphinx in Giza. The other one is somewhere off of Bermuda in this sunken region where this Bimini Road, that's what it is, Bimini Road is. And then the other is in the Yucatan. And that civilization, the last vestiges of the Atlantean culture, apparently has a hall of records somewhere where you're digging. So,
okay, Jim,
I would love to, that's the kind of thing I'd like. Well, you're going to go down there and maybe run into the hall of records and have the emerald tablets and a whole bunch of other stuff. I'd like to see that.
Here, Jim, here's a question. Jim, here's a question. Moon at Noon sent in this message. I hear a rumor that there's 10,000 unexplored stone ruins in the Amazon basins. Is this true?
In an 800 square mile area of Nicaragua, here was about 10 years ago, they did a LiDAR scan from an airplane. And they were just looking for roads leading to this major complex that they had excavated in past years. And where they found in this very, very dense jungle under 3 or 4 canopies of trees were 60,000 structures. Mm-hmm. Now, when I talked to the archaeologists at the excavated sites in Belize, they're now saying that they don't believe that the Mayans built the pyramids, is that they were abandoned and they repurposed them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I said at one time, and now this is from an archaeological archaeological student. He's working on his PhD in archaeology for Belize. And he's part of his internship is to be a docent at these sites. And he said that they now figured that the pyramids are between 20,000 and 200,000 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, what killed off 10 to 20 million Mayans that lived between Mexico City and northern Colombia? He said, well, first of all, the disease is brought over by Cortez and his boys. It just decimated a lot.
Same thing happened in North America, right?
Yeah,
That's right. Measles,
the
chickenpox.
Mayans themselves are just incredibly brutal. And if you were to piss one off and he decided to take retribution, he would not only kill you, your wife, all your kids, your dogs, your cats, your extended family members, maybe even your neighbors, just to make sure he's taught you a lesson. And the fact that they weren't very good farmers, they cultivated the land until it had nothing else to give. So what they refer to most of Belize, for example, is that they refer to it as a green desert. The native plants can grow, but food stuff, because they never just let the fields bare for a season, or plow them down, or change crops. They just use the same one over and over again. Their yields started getting smaller and smaller, and they started to disperse. And then over the course of the last 20,000 years, it could be, or at least the last 2,000 or 3,000 years, the population went from the millions down to in essence, a handful. I mean, the population of Belize is only like 370,000. And the nice thing about it, the official language is English, because it was British Honduras up until, was it 47, when the crown was dissolving the British Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And so everybody speaks English or Mayan.
I think that's the Central America through northern South America, Peru, Amazon, because they're doing LiDAR in Amazon, and they're finding all kinds of stuff they didn't think was there as well.
Yeah.
But I think that one of the things that they're going to find is that the population of the Western Hemisphere, middle North America on south, it was larger than anything in Europe, anything in the Middle East. And I think that they're going to find that there was maybe 100 million people in that region during the time that the European, the Eastern European, the Middle East were still basically in Stone Age. And the population in Central America was extremely advanced. And I think you're right, Jim. I think that the people that the Mayans, the Aztecs, the Toltecs, the Olmecs, and any other X that they come up with, I think those people repurposed an existing infrastructure. And I think that infrastructure was most likely tied to this mythological Atlantean culture. I think that it was a hub of the world, because they had access to both oceans. They could go both directions and be able to get to any part of the world from this central location in Central America and the Western Hemisphere.
Mm-hmm.
So that, to me, I think is what we're going to find out in the next, I think it's only going to be 10, maybe 15 years, but I think it's going to happen sooner than later. And the rewriting of history, it's already begun, but it's going to go through some major chapter rewrites here.
Were any of these new complexes found by star charts or anything, like the kid from Canada that was like 14 years old?
Yep.
Matched up some of the Central America new cities that they found based on the star patterns.
Right. I mean, and just it's actually simple stuff that a lot of the things that we're finding is in spite of the established academic narrative. Um, you know, Graham Hancock is one of the biggest bees buzzing around all these guys and pissing them off, and because he's actually going out and doing the work that they could do, but they would find what he's finding, and that would mean that all of the establishment narrative that they have been earning their degrees and teaching on and making money on is going to be completely changed. And if you are not a part of that change, but you get bulldozed by it, if you see the bulldozer coming, you go, well, you know, that's when you start pointing fingers and, you know, trying to shut people down because they can't possibly be their information can't possibly make any sense because they're not credentialed. They are not approved by us in the ivory towers of the established academia. Um, these systems and these organizations and institutions they screwed the pooch, which means they've screwed themselves because they didn't take advantage of the fact that independent research, independent minds, citizen journalists, the actual citizen being enabled with technology and time. Once the internet sprung free, it was like, oh shit, you can go learn whatever you want. Um, and you don't have to go through this established path to get that knowledge. You don't need a stamped piece of paper to be an expert or to be knowledgeable on something. You can simply go do your own research and become knowledgeable. So that goes back to what I was saying earlier about the homeschooling. This technology we're about to see an unleashing of knowledge and the transfer of knowledge and information that will fuel that knowledge, that will come up with completely different understandings than what we have now. And people are going to be able to go learn on their own. And the key thing is going to be what do you resonate with? What are you drawn to? What do you have a passion for, a proclivity for, a preference for? And these are all natural parts of the way we function as humans. There's something that we resonate with, and if you find out what that is and you pursue it, you become damn good at it, regardless of whether you get a stamped piece of paper or not. So the pursuit of knowledge and the passions that people have for what they're really interested in is what we're seeing now. And that's going to lead to amazing people with incredible innate talents that are going to be able to blossom and going to be able to show everyone else, you know, you really don't, all that old stuff doesn't work anymore. The time for new is now. And here's the way to do it. Just get off your ass, go learn something, and investigate it.
Yeah, Elon Musk said, "I don't care if you flunked out of 9th grade. If you can do the job, I'll hire you, and there's no need to go to a college to do anything. Everything is on the internet. Everything is on YouTube." And a whole bunch of CEOs are now saying that, you know what? If we get a resume from someone about ready to graduate from Harvard, it's going to the bottom of the stack over what they pulled the last couple of days. My last real job, I was the curator at the Pacific Aviation Museum in Pearl Harbor. They wanted a PhD. Maybe they would settle for a master's degree. And when I ended up showing them that these guys working on degrees, they have the stuff in theory, but everything they've read in theory, I learned by doing. One of my last conversations I had with Ken DeHoff before he hired me, he said, I want you to come to San Diego. This is the end of 2009. And it'd be the first week of January. And the American Historical Association is there. So I went there to interview him and to go to a few of the sessions. And I was there with 1,500 PhDs and me. And one of the sessions, how to get published. okay, I'd like to hear what they have to say. And because I'm extremely hard of hearing, I always sit right in front of the lectern. And the lady who, the professor was speaking, a very good looking blonde from University of Tulsa. So, but I'm sitting there, and there's about 75 to 100 people in the room. It's a good sized room. And it was after about 40 minutes of her discussion, she said, wouldn't it be wonderful if you can get your monograph published and maybe place 500 copies? I'm thinking to myself, because this is how to get published. I said, I would never put another book out. And so at the end, she said, who here is published? And I raised my hand. And she said, please stand up. Where are you, a professor? I said, well, I'm not a professor anywhere. So I don't have a PhD. I don't have a master's degree. And I have almost a 4.0 with about 3.5 years at University of Minnesota, but I don't have a bachelor's either.
Did you show her your official membership of the Best Bullshitters Club?
Yep. Yep. And
Hey, didn't Rosemary say that?
I said
That's Rosemary's bloody saying, isn't it?
I said at the time, she said, I says, I have 21 books published and a total number of books placed with my, sold with my name on it. It's over 400,000. And everybody's hand went down, and no one would else said anything else. And they sort of dismissed the class, but it was just, and I was older than everybody there as well. So it went hand in hand. But one day,
Robert,
yeah,
your post you just did in chat. We just watched a show the other day about based on the lunar cycle, about 28 days and 13 months.
Mm-hmm.
Is that kind of what you're referring to?
Absolutely. That there is more. The Gregorian system that we're under now was a radical shift in a lot of ways, but the lunar cycle is more in harmony with the life cycles of the planet than this. It's basically solar. There's so many different components to it, but I think that actually the Hebrew, the Torah, their calendar is lunar based, and the Hindus have a lunar cosmology, a lunar focused cosmology. But the sun is like incredibly important. It's the life giver. But let's go ahead and throw this out there since we talked about the moon. How many think is the moon? So the question is the moon an actual rock planet, or is it artificial? Jim, what do you think?
I know when they recorded an impact on the moon and it reverberated for a couple hours.
Rang like a bell. Yep.
Yep.
Boy, that's a hell of an engineering project. I mean, I've seen how they've screwed up bridges.
Well, do you think that it could be artificial, that it could be made and placed there?
I don't think so. I mean, I in today's world, I believe almost anything, but from a logical point of view, I don't see how it could have been. And
you know that there's mythos back in the Sumerian, Chaldean, Akkadian, and even in some of the Pythagorean and Greek writings that there was a time where there was no moon.
Right.
Then there was a time with two moons.
And then
the
there's
Native American Indians talk about two moons.
And that brings in the whole question of what happened in 1177 BC that apparently has something to do with Venus being a comet being caught in our solar system. Thunderbolts, David Talbot's work, and even Velikovsky talks about Venus being a comet that was captured in our solar system. But back to the moon. I think it's hollow. I think it's inhabited. I also think that it apparently, I mean, if you think about it, if you look at all of these different mythos and cosmologies of all civilizations, They all say somebody up there came down here, told us some stuff, gave us some shit, screwed with us, whatever they did, and then they left. But there was somebody up there came down here.
Yep.
Well, and at a minimum influenced the whatever the particular cultures were, or at a maximum they actually created who we are. And so if you think about it, if you got that kind of capability, then you could probably how would you manage it? Well, we want to see what our creation does. Yeah, and you see the ties into all the different theologies about a progenitor creator that created us and keeps an eye on us. Well, if that stuff is an allegory to what actually happened, meaning there was some cosmic cousin that came down here and popped us into being. What better way to keep an eye on it and manage it other than to have a satellite that orbits all the time that you can use as an outpost to keep an eye on the kids, right? and let them go.
Nanny cam.
Right, Great big nanny cam comes out at night, shines a big light on you. What are you doing? You're not what you're supposed to be doing.
Well, I heard some theory about when we talk about Nibiru. Nobody talks about Nibiru. The Anunnaki planet. Now, if anybody stopped thinking, apparently Nibiru was supposed to be a dying planet. That's basically the theory of it all, and they needed gold.
Mm-hmm.
And to save their planet, their atmosphere, and everything else. I mean, personally, I don't know, but now they say that could it be possible that Nibiru is actually the moon? They actually transported the moon here because don't forget, Enki and that had a war, right?
Mm-hmm.
They made Homo sapiens sapiens a slave race. Now, could the moon? Seeing that it's in an orbit, it's too big to be captured by the Earth, right? Mm-hmm. And it's hollow. Could that have been like? Let's put it this way: on Earth, we have nuclear fallout shelters to protect life supporting systems and everything else, right? So, could the moon be something like that, where the Anunnaki actually lived in?
Well,
and the Earth, it's a big question mark.
I think that it makes sense logically, and whether it's fabricated in an artificial or if it was a captured planetoid and it was moved, placed, hollowed, engineered, and worked on.
That's what I think.
And I think it's occupied. I have no doubt about that.
Oh, yes.
All the Apollo astronauts basically said the same thing.
Hey, even your old mate, John Lear, said that, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, I had lunch and I ended up sitting next to Buzz Aldrin, and he introduced himself, and I said, "Well, I know who you are." I said, "What can you tell me about UFOs and aliens?" And he just put his head down and sort of turned his back on me for a few minutes, and came back and just smiled, didn't say a word, and then we just chatted airplanes from that point forward. So
yeah.
Yeah, so this
sometimes you don't have to say, body language tells all.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's for sure. Yeah,
well, I mean, there's one of the theories that created the moon, that we collided with another planet, and it the size of Mars. We were both the size of Mars. We were both much smaller, and we got hit, and this thing shot a whole chunk of the planet out. And it was captured by the gravitational pull, and eventually just sort of ended up being our moon.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting too is that saw that comment that just came up. There is nothing in any of the physics models that explains how the moon came to be. It violates all of the planetary physics and astrophysics that we see in all the observations of other moons around other planets. So the size is wrong, the stationary, and the moon does rotate, but we don't see that rotation because of the way that it's positioned. It's exactly 400 times the distance from the moon from the Earth to the moon is exactly 400 times the distance of the moon to the sun. And that's why we have eclipses like we had today.
Yeah.
So there's all these really weird anomalies about this thing that don't fit any of the physics models, and there are no explanations. So yeah, whether, the original one I heard when I was a kid is it came out of the Pacific Ocean, right? It just kind of like some big blob popped out, and it's like, well, I don't know what that means. Then there was the whole capture thing, but capture doesn't make any sense because the orbit is perfect. So that wouldn't happen in a capture model. There would be some eccentricity to it. So all of the physics don't work. In fact, they still don't have an answer for the asteroid belt. Right? They know that they've got all these chunks out there.
Yeah.
But they think, well, it must have been an exploding planet. Well, okay, how do you, what in your cosmology explains that? Oh, by the way, while you're at it, tell us what you think this Mars Valinaris is. Mars Valinaris is on Mars. It looks like a giant lightning strike.
Yes.
And John Brandenburg's done an amazing work on it. Joseph Farrell about the cosmic war. What's interesting is in all these mythos, the asteroid belt, the moon, the devastation of Mars are all talked about in all of this cosmology. They're all explained. There's a story about how each one of those happened. But because it's considered some psychedelic muse by the guys sitting around in robes with beards writing their stories down, they discount it. But all through the Sumerians, Sitchin, his translations, and all of the follow-up translations all have the same story in it. Nibiru, Tiamat, the moons around Nibiru, the cycles, and that I just saw it was like within the last month. All of a sudden, the 12th planet is starting to creep in again, and people are going, wait a minute, we found something out there and we can't explain it. It's like, you guys recycled the same story every 15, 20 years. And you would think with the telemetry and the toys like the James Webb Space Telescope, which is, again, another example of all the cosmology getting turned upside down. They just came out and said, wait a minute, 13 billion years for the universe is wrong. It's actually 26 billion, and we're still counting, right? So all of these, if you look at the information that's available, you find that, and this is one of the things I like to hang on to. If you look at history as myth and myth as history, you start getting a whole bunch of answers to things that the history that you're told is history can't answer. And because all you do is they've reclassified fact as myth. All these people wrote these stories down. They weren't doing it because they didn't have anything else to do. And if they did, why is there so many common characteristics and mappings to all these different belief systems and cultures that all say the same thing? And apparently they were not in contact with one another. So if you look at the stories that they told about their origins and you take that as fact, all of a sudden a bunch of stuff starts getting answered. Why there's a scar on Mars, why there's an asteroid belt, why there's a moon, all these things. And you go, well, it makes more sense than the official stories do, at least in my opinion.
Yeah.
How many other orbiting bodies are in a tidal lock like our moon?
Well, that's another thing that physics doesn't explain.
And you've seen in the movies as we fly through the asteroid belt. I mean, you have to really fly around the stuff. The average distance between objects in the asteroid belt is 670,000 miles.
Between rocks.
Between rocks, yeah.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of them, and they're way the hell out there.
Yeah, that's just for a bit of kind of Hollywood
I saw
kind
that
of excitement, isn't it?
On a computer generated thing using a star map where they said, okay, if we take like Star Wars or Star Trek and we hyper hyperspace into another galaxy. What are we going to hit on our way? So they plotted it all the way out. And just like you said, they're so far apart, you don't hit nothing when you plot your course.
Yeah. So I thought
And,
that was,
of course,
interesting.
you'll have something on board that give you variation that can look so far ahead. You'll have your variations and where you're going and correction, speed, and everything else. So
Now, sometime I think this year, early next year, the giant Magellan telescope will have first light, and that's in Chile, in the northern part of Chile. It's at 16,000 feet, and the mirrors were made here at the University of Arizona Mirror Lab. And
is that bigger than the Chinese one, or is the Chinese one going to be bigger?
They utilize 7 27-foot diameter mirrors for their primary mirror.
Okay.
And they said it will be able to look within. Now, this is when we were only 13.4 billion years old. So we'd be able to look back within 100,000 years of first light. That's when the first star decided to glow. So if that's the case, we're going to see things that we never expected to see. And every time they come up with a new piece of equipment like the Hubble, and then it was now the James Webb, and pretty soon it'll be the giant Magellan telescope. And they're building these big telescopes with multiple mirrors everywhere. Not everywhere, but in more than just one or two places. Everything you knew about physics, everything you knew about astrophysics and astronomy, you almost have to throw out the window and start from scratch, because all the theories, all the ideas they had, that the Big Bang, was there a Big Bang?
Not the way they've described it. They came up with a Big Bang in '66 to account for observations that didn't meet the math and the models that they put into the machines.
Okay.
And it's the same thing with dark energy and dark matter.
Now,
The only reason that stuff is out there is because they observed stuff that their calculations didn't account for. So they had to go back and figure out, well, what are we missing in the calculation? Well, there must be this stuff called dark energy and dark matter that has something to do with this Big Bang that explains everything, all the laws of nature and all of the elements and the way everything unfolded. But now, James Webb just threw a turd in that bowl and said, well, now we're seeing twice as far. It's like, well, what else are you going to find when you keep looking, right?
Yeah, the Mayo telescope up at Kitt Peak, it's a 4-meter primary mirror. And they modified where the secondary mirror goes. They took the mirror out. They put in a optical head with 5,000 adjustable optical lenses. And their job is to be able to identify over a period of 5 years, looking at the northern sky where they have a sister telescope, the exact same make in Chile, and they're going to do the southern sky. And they're going to catalog the neighborhood of 40 million galaxies to determine if they can figure out what dark energy, dark matter is, because they calculate that the weight of the universe as we know it, they figure over 90% of the weight of the universe is in dark matter.
And the thing that that they just keep missing is the things that Buckminster Fuller, Tesla, Walter Russell, Keeley, even Maxwell and Faraday and Heaviside, they all just found what is the real essence of the universe, which is the ether. It's all etheric, all energy, all water, all communication that we need to exist in a free form is right in the air we breathe. It's in the atmosphere around us. And so because they dismiss that, they don't understand it, the Ethereum, they have to dismiss it because in physics, if you can't observe it, it has to be mathematically modeled. And if the mathematical models try to calculate something that can't be observed, and then all of a sudden they get an observation or something, they look back at the model and go, oh, shit, that didn't work. because they're looking in the wrong place for the wrong thing for the wrong reasons. And the information about how our reality actually exists has been known for at least in the last 150 to 200 years. There have been all of the breakthroughs and all of the formulas and the tests and the tools and the devices have been made to get all the energy we need, to get all the water we need right out of the air we breathe, right out of the environment we're in. But they can't acknowledge that because it'll screw up their entire ownership of the paradigm, and it'll put them out of business because nobody will need them. Nobody will pay them to come up with all this math models, machines, and men to come up with this magical crap that they say, well, this is how everything exists. This is where everything
There's no
comes
room for variables.
Yeah, it's so simple that they have to make it complicated so that they sound like they're the ones who know what the hell they're talking about and what's going on. But they fail every time new information is found by new telemetry, by new tools, new toys, new techniques, new thinking. All of that stuff is completely changing the paradigm. And they don't know they can't handle that because it screws up their little candy store.
Well, my friends, we're getting to that time of the day. The time, hey, we're nearly 2.5 hours into it.
Hey, we're just getting started. What in the hell you doing?
Yeah, what are you talking about?
Yeah, we're just getting warmed up.
Robert and I went on a Zoom call. Was it Sunday?
So
listen, I tell you what,
Monday,
I'll turn
We talked.
I'm going for. I'm going to go for an undrink. So you have a drink, so you have an undrink. Right? So I'm going for an undrink. I'll leave you guys to it for a few minutes. I'll be back in about 4.
No, I have to. I have a full bladder, and I have to say goodnight to my wife.
Okay. We'll call it quits then for the night.
Yeah.
Hey, but we can continue this another weekend. And
I'm glad you called me, and I always enjoy my time here. And of course, with Robert, we can't. We talked for 3.5, or was it 4 hours here?
I think it was almost 4. My eyes were blurry to see the clock when we were done.
I was running out of words.
Hey, we're a tight family here. You know what I mean?
So,
keep us informed on the South America expedition and stuff. I'd like to know more about that.
And if all of you out there and listening, say a little prayer for my wife. She goes into brain surgery on Tuesday, so it's cancer again. So it's.
Our prayers are with you there, buddy. Don't worry.
We'll be trying.
And thank you, everybody out there in cyberspace. All my cybernauts are out there. So all my cybernauts, hello. Thank you for joining us. And my wonderful friends here. Look, guys, it's a pleasure having you guys on when I'm on. Hey,
I love it. I love it.
I love it too, Jim. I love it too. And mate, Gerald, thank you very much for joining us. And Jane, it's a pleasure having you with us.
We streamed this on our channel while we were talking tonight too, so it hit our channel tonight also.
Yeah. So Geraldine, you want to chat with me some evening? Just drop me a line. I have a pretty open schedule, so as long as I'm in the country. I will be going to Belize here at the end of the.
We're not going 100 miles an hour down an interstate somewhere.
Or not calling me at midnight during the week.
Professor, thank you very much, sir. It's always a pleasure having you on. Okay, and listen, keep the music flowing, mate. Let me know when you're on. I'll get a notification. I'll come and listen to your music.
I streamed 5 of the albums. I've got like 6, 7, or 8 more. Yeah. So
I wouldn't mind you sending me in emails that didgeridoo.
Oh yeah, Samadhi. Yeah.
Ooh, didgeridoo.
Do you own that one as well, Robert?
Yes, I have a didgeridoo. It's next to Goodall.
There's one sitting right next to me.
Yep.
Oh mate, I love didgeridoo music. It's
awesome.
It is, isn't it? Anyway, guys, thank you very much. And let's go off stream. I'll just hey, everybody, remember, be nice,
Yep.
be kind, and aspire to inspire one another. And as our good friend, Dr. Skinner would say, let's lift each other up so we can all rise up together. And
All right.
hey, it's a
Adios.
beautiful thing there.
Oh,
Thank
keep
you very
working
much,
up.
Jim. Bye-bye now, Jim. Thank you, Gerald. Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye.
Good night.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you very much. And for you, Robert, thank you very much, sir. And,
Thank you, sir.
mate. I will talk to you about some music. You know, I'm thinking of sending you off some of my own compositions. See what you can do with it.
Please do. You got my my contact bona
Yes,
fides.
I
So
certainly
yeah,
do,
just
mate.
let's do it.
Okay, catch you later, buddy. Bye-bye
All right,
now.
take care.
Thank you. Well, everybody, what a wonderful evening, or morning for me, evening for you guys. But yes, so this is another show done, and thank you very much for joining us. And why am I in the dark tonight? Because I'm a mushroom. Kept in the dark, fed on BS. Okay, thank you very much for joining us. Bye-bye now.